Hello, everyone. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, as per your respective time zone. On behalf of entire Evosys Managed Services team, we'd like to welcome you all to 22A Inventory and Order Management Advisory Webinar session. This important session is to keep you fully synchronized with the new features and functionalities as a part of this quarterly release which Oracle provides to us. My name is Hardik Patel, and I'm an options manager here at Evosys Managed Services Department. Today, I'm your host for this session, and I'm glad to introduce my colleague Parth Dave, who's part of vast supply chain team at Evosys. He's also acting as global COE in managed services from supply chain team. Today, he'll take us through all the inventory and order management updates for 22A quarterly release. Today's session is planned for around 45 to 60 minutes, and we'll make sure that we also leave some time to answer questions you may have. Before we move to today's agenda, let's have a quick look at the important disclaimer. As we all noticed that Oracle has notified some customers about 22A upgrade happening along with 22B in the month of May. So customers are requested to check the respective notifications accordingly. However, this session is mainly to equip you with the latest updates on 22A. We would like to convey you our approach towards the Oracle updates in a very simpler method. We'll be taking you through vital analysis for the 22A updates done by our experts, which will help you incorporate new features and updates easily into your system. We will also sync you on any bugs or known issues if there are any. It's good to have an interactive session, so please do ask questions through chat or question panel, and we'll answer them at the end of the session and during the session as well. This is to give you a glimpse on how we have crafted the structure of this session. List of new features coming into 22A. Detailing on the features, so you get brief understanding on what new features are all about. Next one is what are the business benefits and important takeaway for you as a decision maker. There are four important components where we have done in-depth analysis of features which we are going to present to you today. The first one is impact level analysis, which demonstrate the impact on end user. If it's a low impact, then regression testing can be avoided or not. If it's a high impact, then we need to opt for regression testing. Second one, which is we all are aware that there are some features which are by default auto-enabled by Oracle. There are some which we need to opt for. Third one highlights the nature of the feature. There would be certain configuration which may be required and some can be used without any changes. And the last one, which is a quick win. This term we use to simply convey that what is ready to use by investing minimum amount of time and what requires significant amount of time and effort to make use of this feature. With this, before I hand it over to my colleague, we'll do one poll, and with your help, we would like to note down that which industry does your organization belongs to on the screen. If you can help us with the poll. Thank you so much, and I'll be immediately handing over to my colleague Parth, and he'll be taking you through today's session. Thank you. Over to you, Parth. Unmute yourself, and stage is all yours. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Hardik. So good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining this session. Just a small apology in advance. I have a little bad throat today, so do pardon me if I cough in between. I'll start with the point about showing the total numbers of features which are available as a part of 22A. So as most of you might be aware that when we perform the analysis for the features, we divide them into four main categories. The first one is the quick wins with the default configuration and no separate setups or any changes are required. Then there are quick wins which are default in nature, but they do require a minor changes on the setup. The third one, which we feel is the most important one, because here we need to tick the checkbox of the opt-in if we want to go ahead with this specific feature. And then there are not quick wins, which we categorize mainly due to the experience or the background about that feature, which we feel might not be of a higher impact or does not fall into one which would comparatively change a larger picture from the user's perspective. it could be possible that you might have a requirement for those feature which are falling under not quick win. So it's completely up to the user and their specific business requirement. So let's begin with the quick wins which are default in nature and does not require any configuration change. Starting with starting with the first one, which is search sub inventories when creating a physical inventory. So this is all pertaining to the inventory or the warehouse operations, where we know that when we create a physical inventory, some organizations might have a number of sub inventories which needs to be counted on, and whenever we are doing a physical inventory, it's sometimes practically very difficult for us to include the ones which we specifically want to identify. So Oracle has come up with this feature of searching those sub inventories when we highlight it at the time of creating the physical inventory, that a specific sub inventory needs to be selected. So he or she can create sorry he or she can search the specific sub inventory from here and add it to the selected box, click OK, and those will be listed down as the selected ones. So overall, the business benefit which one would get by this feature is ease of finding the sub inventories while creating the physical inventory process. Overall, it's a medium impact. It does not require any default and any configuration, plus it's a default feature as well. The second one is create transit times for customers ship to address. So it could be possible that based on the item size or the item characteristics, the transit time may change, or it may differ from those specific characteristics of an item. For example, if it is a hazardous item or if it is a bulky item in nature and it's difficult to ship, the transit time may differ. So Oracle has come up with this feature of creating the transit times for customer ship to address. What overall it helps us to do is it gives us more visibility and options while selecting a specific shipment, again based on the nature of this item, and select the appropriate ship to address for that specific shipment. The next one is manage processing errors efficiently with the enhanced error handling option. So Oracle has come up with an overall improved system performance which helps us to automatically uh, sort of purge the cost accounting process errors. It will run automatically after the period and validation process and the create accounting distribution. So it is what it is doing is that it is purging all the cost accounting errored records from the table, which at the end will enhance the performance of the page. Next one on the list is import or update a large number of tier for price lists. So it could be possible that when we are updating the price list, the number of records that needs to be uploaded or updated are of quite a big number. Hence, Oracle has come up with this option of importing them on the large scale as well, and one can manage the tiered adjustment from the price list charges. They can create, append, or update the tier header and lines. This is all in the FBDI template which one uses for updating the price list. The next one in the list is consider earliest acceptable date attribute as a constraint while promising. So before 22A, what had happened is this feature or the field of the earliest acceptable date was already present, but Oracle order management was counting it as a requested date, and it does not actually take into consideration that when exactly is the shipment supposed to be received. So from 22A onwards, we can use the earliest acceptable date. So when the request type is, in this case, arrive, whatever you mention in the earliest acceptable date means that by this time you would be able to accept the shipment which is arriving at your warehouse. So Oracle then considers the actual shipment date based on the earliest acceptable date attribute as well. This was registered as a bug earlier, which got resolved in 22A, and it is also mentioned that this option will automatically be enabled. because it's a default option. Now coming to the default quick wins with some configurational changes. The first one in the list is receive order forecast from the customers. So from the B2B perspective, we can now receive the customers order forecast as well, which at the end would help us to increase the accuracy on the demand. So this is more of an XML option where under the manage collaboration message definition, we have to enable this, and the customers can send out their forecast information and that can be received in the system. The next one is on the approval rules side, where Oracle has now added the mentioned attributes on the order header and the order lines. So it helps us to efficiently write our approval rules in a way which captures the attributes that are mentioned on the header or on the line level. Overall, it helps us to, as mentioned, efficiently write our approval rules, hence our business requirements can be captured. Now coming to the opt-ins, as mentioned earlier, opt-ins are the ones which requires a tick mark on the feature itself if you want to move ahead on this specific feature which is listed. So starting with the first one, substitute items during pick release for transfer orders. Now this is an opt-in feature, and the setup starts from the definition of the inventory organization itself. So under the inventory organization parameters, there is a checkbox which says warehouse will basically accept item substitution also. So if you allow that uh, process to be incorporated to that specific inventory organization, then we can avoid any back orders situations where due to one or the other reasons the item which is under the internal demand is unavailable or is not able to be shipped. Then we can substitute that with another item provided that we have already ticked the checkbox. There is some setup which is also available at, on the item level itself, where we have to mention the related items against it, hence it will consider as a substitute item. You can see that while creating the transfer orders, it gives us an icon to show that there is a substitution after this shipment, and this allow item substitution checkbox is also ticked. Another one is default transaction history DFF context value by transaction type or transaction action. So this is very specific to opening up a DFF while performing the transaction. In this scenario, the example which is shown over the screen is for miscellaneous receipt. So if there is a business requirement to capture any additional information, but only specific to when we are performing a miscellaneous receipt, it should not be enabled when an account alias has been created by the user. So that has to be a context sensitive segment first of all. So Oracle has now come up with this feature where we can create the DFF which is a context sensitive in nature and provide the transaction type as its LOV, which means that whenever a miscellaneous receipt will be created by the user, the specific DFF in this case, which is a store code, will be automatically enabled. It will be only specific to transaction types which are mentioned while doing the setups. Moving to next is raise a business event when transfer orders are updated or cancelled. So on the REST API side, what Oracle has now given is that we can create or raise a business event. For example, if there are any changes, which is an updation or any cancellation on the transfer orders, and we want to inform to the transportation management system, then we can create or raise that business event when that specific transaction or when that specific transaction is getting triggered. So as it is shown over here, that we create a or we raise a business event as soon as there is a update or a cancel for the transfer order, and that will be communicated to the required third party system. This is pertaining to the REST web services or APIs which are available for the inventory. The next one on the opt-in list is create account distributions for multiple cost organizations simultaneously without pre-processing dependency. So I think we all are aware about the importance on the cost accounting distribution side that we have to create a run control and then mention the respective cost organization. So in an example, if we take a hypothetical example that an organization has mapped the cost organizations along with the inventory, and if there are more than 5 inventory organizations, then those many run control options which we had to define earlier, but from 22A onwards we can club them together and under a single run control. So for example, we can define a run control named as common, and under that common run control we can add these many cost organizations. So at the end what it does is it provides an uh, independent run control which can be simultaneously run so that all the cost accounting distributions for the respective cost organizations take place at a single go. However, the earlier option is still available that if we are not very comfortable in performing this process, then we can still go ahead and create one-to-one mapping for the run control and cost organization as well. Next is to manually write off a deduction to settle a claim. So earlier the manual write-off option was not available, and once 22A has been upgraded onto the system, this feature will be uh, an option to be enabled. And once we enable this feature, this capability will help us to provide uh, an option of manually writing off an entire claim uh, of the deductions which are there. So overall what it helps us to make sure is that there is an auditable trace available for any settlement process which has happened. The next one is update and settle multiple claims. So it could be possible that a person who is working on the settlement side, there are more than one uh, settlements that has to be processed. So it would be very much difficult for a person to quickly and efficiently work on such multiple claims. What Oracle has now given us is an to update and settle the multiple claims in a single go, which overall increases our efficiency, and it also helps us to quickly turn around the process time. The next one is configure Flexfields on a customer claim header. So this is basically allowing us to create DFF on the customer claim header, and it also is exposed on the REST services as well. So it overall helps us to capture the additional requirements if there are any through the DFF option. The next one is create a transfer supply request that includes project details. So this could be an interesting feature because if we are having projects defined in our organizations, and we want to pass on that information of project level onto the inventory side as well, with the help of this transfer supply request, we can include the project details. For example, we can specify the project and the task when we create the transfer supply request. The supply chain orchestration will default the other attributes of the project. It will validate and then send the information of the project details at the time of creating the transfer orders. And when in the inventory management, once a transfer order is created, it will have all the necessary details of the project. So this combines the information right from the creation of supply request, which has the project details, to the transfer orders that are created on the inventory side. The next is use service mapping to extend supply chain orchestration integration with procurement. Now, in through this option, basically while creating the service mappings, we are integrating the Oracle order management, Oracle supply chain orchestration, and Oracle procurement as well. So a sales order would be created on the order management side. It will be orchestrated and processed through the supply chain orchestration, and then against that sales order we can create a purchase order on the procurement. uh, Also, there is an option to use an extensible Flexfield EFF to integrate data that's specific to this implementation process. So it helps us to meet if there are any specific needs from the business side to integrate the order management to the procurement side. That can be achieved by creating the service mappings. Um, this high volume order promising is actually an opt-in feature, which once when we opt in, uh, we can start using the sub processes which are available under this high volume order promising option. So this, once we are enabling this high volume order promising, we can then use the schedule multiple order lines for delivery on the same date. So uh, multiple orders, if you want to deliver on the same date, from now onwards Oracle has an option to do so, uh, provided that we are enabling the high volume order promising option. The another option which we can then start using is automatically generate bills of resources for capable to promise. This is an ESS job, which is create bills of resources, and based on the parameters which are mentioned, so the resource template would be capable to promise. Anything which is falling under this capable to promise, it will automatically create the bills for such resources. Now focusing on the ones which we feel based on our experience, and the list of features which are there, could fall under the not quick win. As mentioned earlier, it could be possible that there is an existing business requirement which could be catered through this feature as well. Starting with view open pick details using the REST resource. So overall, it has simplified now the options of adding the open pick details in the REST services. It helps us to improve the integration process if there is any, which are using the REST services. The next one is view item substitution column in the inventory transfer order subject area on the OTBI side. So as we saw earlier, the item substitution option, if we are using it, then we can also create the report out of it, and it falls under the subject area of inventory transfer orders real time and under the transfer order lines details. Another is again on the OTBI side, view ordered quantity and UOM in the inventory supply real time subject area. So ordered quantity and the ordered UOM are now available as a part of the subject area mentioned over here. The next one is get receiving quantity transactions using REST resource. So again, an enhancement on the REST services which are there. We can now have an option of getting the receiving quantity of the transactions through the REST services as well. View ordered quantity and UOM in the receiving subject area. So again, one more feature on the OTBI side is to have the visibility on the ordered quantity and the unit of measure on the receiving side as well. So as mentioned, purchase order line ordered quantity are available under these subject areas. Purchase order scheduled order quantity are available under these subject areas, and item ordered quantity and ordered unit of measure are available under these specific subject areas. Overall, it helps us to report better on the OTBI side. Another one is view item substitution columns in the shipping subject area. So one more OTBI feature which helps us to capture the substitution item. So overall, while reporting an information the original item, we can understand that was this an substituted item. If yes, then it would capture the information as well, and the original item ID is also being captured. Hence we can understand whether this has been supplied through the original demand itself, or has there been any substitution at the order level. Next one is use predefined mapping set to determine inbound CFOP codes. So this is more on the fiscal documents from an XML, and we can then capture the CPOF inbound operational fiscal codes through the XML files also. Specify how long to wait before giving control to users after copying sales order. It could be possible that within a sales order there are many lines and it might take a certain while to copy a sales order. So this option helps us to uh, give away to the user that the system will wait for the mentioned seconds before it gives the control to the user during the copying process of a sales order. If there are less number of lines under a sales order, it might not take that much of time. The next one is delete pricing data from interface table. Basically, it is helping us to cleanse the data on the interface side. The parameters is all import interface data can be deleted. Uh, Please mark the schedule process name. It's delete pricing data from the interface tables. So we are just sort of cleansing the data from the interface table, which overall helps us to improve the process. Uh, apply taxes from partner tax application when settling manual claims, deductions, and overpayments. Pretty straightforward that this benefit is a centralized tax application integrated with the Oracle Cloud. It helps us to deliver a tight integration on the settlement process. Indicate that a deduction claim amount is inclusive of tax or not. So we can now have an option to understand whether the claim amount which is mentioned is including of tax or not. Earlier this feature was not available, hence it helps us to have a better visibility whether the tax was already added or not. Manage supplier programs through supplier portal. So this option is helping us to securely create and offer the program details directly to the supplier through the supplier portal option. Capture notes and attachments for the supplier claims. If we are having any specific need to capture the notes and attachments during the claims, then that also is now feasible. Use active source and destination organizations for transfer requests. So this was a bug which had been identified that has been resolved in the 22A update. And as mentioned that we can now use the active source and the destination organization while creating the transfer request. Earlier, we were not able to know whether the source or the destination organization has been active or has been deactivated. Finally, include only constrained components and resources in manufacturing lead time calculation. So just as an example, the bill of material uh, to create the smart doorbell are mentioned over here. As the feature mentioned, it now gives us an option to include only the constrained components or the resources while performing the manufacturing process for the item. It overall helps us to make sure that the processes are more streamlined in nature. I'll now pass it on back to my colleague Hardik Patel to see if there are any questions that needs to be answered. Over to you, Hardik.
Thank you for the wonderful insights, Parth. Thank you once again. Before we go to the Q&A, we'd like to quickly note down your area of interest on the screen, if you can help us with the poll. to let us know whether your area of interest is managed services, technology innovation, value-based analytics, or cloud transformation. Based on that, we can deliver some more value-based content going forward on these upcoming webinars and further series. Thank you for the inputs. We'll be closing the poll. This is to keep you informed that we'll be sending you presentation PDF and also the recording of this session. It would be listed on the Evosys website landing page only, and we'll be sending you the link through an email using which you'll be able to access. Also, you can go onto the YouTube, and if you put 22A Evosys webinar, you'll also come up, but this will take 24 hours time to get this loaded, and will be ready for you to use. Thank you. We'll be closing the poll. And as we can see, there are no further questions. There was a question on the recording and the presentation. We've answered that. And there's another question from Mr. Shanmuga. What is the date for the patch release? So one of my colleagues will try and answer this. Parth, if you can take that up.
Yeah, I think the if the question is related to the upgrade as to when that would be happening, then I think Oracle would already be sending out the communication as when the upgrade are going to happen, and the patch will, or the bugs that are getting resolved through this 22A upgrade will be a part of that bundle itself.
So thank you. That's what the question you have had. We've got one PPM session coming up today itself. And with this, we would like to appreciate for everyone's time. And before you all leave us, we have just last poll to let us know how we did today on the overall today's session on the scale of 1 to 5. If you can please help us, we can, with your feedback, we can improve going forward. Thank you so much for the inputs. We'll be closing the poll now. And once again, we'd like to thank you, everyone, for your important time. And we'll make sure and send you the recording along with the presentation PDF of this particular session. Thank you, everyone, once again, for your time.